I have a friend who back in high school prided himself on figuring out exactly the bare minimum he needs to do to get the grade he wants in a class, and then consciously choosing to not do anything more than that bare minimum. And ironically, actually, he's now a teacher, and I'm sure he's quite annoyed with any student who's doing exactly the same thing he did then. But that's because he now recognizes that the real point of the class isn't to get a grade, it's to draw from that time the things that are truly valuable, important information that comes in useful, the skill to learn and to remember and to work hard to get what you want. It's that knowledge and experience that are the real point and focus of that class. It isn't the grade you get. After all, nobody has ever asked me what grade I got on any random quiz in my math class in high school. But they do end up seeing whether I'm the type of person who has learned the things I was supposed to learn in that high school class. Whether I'm someone who's able to do the work that's in front of me, even when there are more pleasant things trying to tempt me away. That is the type of skill that's always going to be useful. And when Jesus is talking about the foolish virgins, I think he is criticizing that same type of just do the bare minimum mindset. Because when they got out there with their lamps, they had enough oil for what they expected they would need. Only too late did they find out that because the bridegroom came later than they thought, the amount of oil they brought is insufficient. And so they missed out on the wedding feast. They weren't able to enter because they turned out not to be ready. And Jesus is trying to make sure that we don't fall into that mindset in terms of our relationship with Him. Sometimes people say things like, that they want to live in a way that lets them just slide into a purgatory. And I really believe that's missing the point. After all, we aren't given this life because God wants to see how little we can do and still make it to heaven. And rather, He is trying to make us great. He's trying to make us holy. He's trying to help us to live a good and fulfilling life. And that isn't about doing the bare minimum. It's about continuing to grow and learn and be transformed by grace. And the more we can do that, the more that can become genuinely the focus of our lives, the more it's going to affect everything. Because we're not living this life just for trying to squeak our way into heaven. We're trying to become saints. We're trying to become great. We're trying to be shining reflections of God's love in this world. And the more we can do that, the more that love can shine into us and shine through us and transform us, the happier we will be. Because that sanctity doesn't just make our experience of heaven more complete and more pleasant. It also allows us to live this life, this time, all our relationships better, more joyfully, in a more fulfilling way. That's what the Lord wants to give us. And that can only happen if we are constantly striving to open our hearts to grace. If we're always looking for places to get that precious oil of God's love, of God's sanctity. Let us strive to take full advantage of the way the Lord wants to bless us today. Look for opportunities to connect to God through prayer. Look for opportunities to serve God by praying for those who are in need, supporting the people who are struggling around us. In that way, we will be ready for the coming of the Lord, not having done the bare minimum, but rather becoming like Him and able to rejoice forever in heaven and look back on every day here on earth with pride and with joy.